Hey everyone. So today we are going to be going through completing the square. So completing the square is basically the process that helps us to get a perfect square expansion. I think you have kind of seen those three formulas on, I guess, the perfect square expansion in the algebra topic. So I'm not going to go through too much about that. A few things about completing the square is that it can be used to solve quadratic equations even when they cannot be factorized using PSF. What I mean by that is basically the factors that you use to solve those quadratic equations, normally using PSF, aren't really nice numbers. They're not whole numbers. They're very weird and disgusting numbers. That's the easiest way that I can explain it for you. And the third thing about completing the square is that most or some of your answers are going to be in surd form. If you don't know what surds are, it's basically square roots. And I've got an example right underneath there. An example is 3 square root 2. That's a surd, okay? All right. So when you are completing the square, you need to remember the following. Half it, square it, okay? Now, what is it that I'm halving and squaring? Well, the it that I'm actually halving and squaring comes from the general formula of a quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. The it that I'm actually squaring and halving is this plus b. Okay, that number in front of the x in my quadratic equation. That's the number that I'm halving and I'm squaring. Okay. Right. Some steps to solve quadratic equations using completing the square. First, make sure that your equation is a monic quadratic equation, meaning that, as an example, x squared plus 5x minus 1 equals to 0. So the number in front of the x squared is going to be 1. That's monic. Okay. Step number 2, something new that we haven't learned and we're going to learn in this lesson is completing the square, half it, square it. 3, step number 3 is going to be just basically solve it so that you can find x. Okay, so let's go to our example. Example number 1. Solve the following quadratic equations by completing the square. Leave answers in surd form or leave it in square roots. My first question here is x squared minus 10x plus 5 equals to 0. Okay, now our first step was to make sure that the equation is monic. Is it monic in this question? Yes, because the number in front of the x squared is just 1. There's an invisible 1 there, mind you. Okay, so step number 1 is done. Step number 2, we're going to complete the square. But before we do that, and I show you how to do it, the first thing I need to do is that plus 5, I need to move it to the other side first before completing the square. So I need to minus 5 on both sides, plus minus, 5 minus 5 equals me to 0. So I'm left with, on the left-hand side, x squared minus 10x equal me to negative 5. Okay, once I've done that, all I'm going to do now is completing the square. So from this step onwards is going to be completing the square. So to complete the square, all I'm doing is I'm just going to write down x squared minus 10x, still the same. Now, completing the square is basically adding the it, right, or that plus b part, or the number in front of the x, halving it and then squaring it, just adding that. Okay, so this is what I mean. The it in this particular question, the number in front of the x is going to be not 10, but negative 10. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add bracket the it number here is negative 10. I'm going to half that negative 10. Okay, and I'm going to square it. So halved it, square it. This should equal me to negative 5. Now, like for equations, if I do it on one side, I must do it to the other side because it's a balancing scale. Okay, if I add 1 cube on one side, I have to add another cube on the other side so that it becomes balanced. Okay, so I need to add negative 10 over 2 whole squared. Okay, next part here is going to be putting it or factorizing it in perfect squares. But before that, let's just make sure we know what it is. Okay, so from that line to the next line, all I'm going to do is write down x squared plus 10x plus bracket. What's negative 10 divided by 2? That's negative 5. I'm just going to keep it with the whole squared for a bit, okay, because it's going to come in handy. Equal me 2, if I put that all into the calculator, so that negative 5 plus negative 10 over 2 whole squared, that should give me 20. Okay, now here, from this part here, I'm going to actually factorize it. So factorizing it into perfect squares. So those three formulas that was at the top at the beginning, I'm going to first put in x, okay? Then what I'm going to put in is I'm going to put in this negative 5 here, okay? So I'm going to put x, negative 5, whole squared, equal me to 20. Once I've done that, all I'm going to do is now solve for x. How do I get x equals to? Well, the first step for me to do is I'm going to square root both sides so that I can get rid of this squared. Okay, what I'm left with now is x minus 5 equaling me to not just square root 20, but plus or minus square root 20. Make sure you remember to put that in. Okay, once you've done that, I need to get x by itself. So I need to add 5 on both sides to get rid of that negative 5. This cancels out. Okay, x will equal me to plus or minus square root 20 plus 5. Okay. Yes, you could leave it like this, but at times your surds, so that root 20 can be simplified. Okay, so what I mean by simplified is the following. That square root 20 can be broken down in the following square roots. Square root 4 times square root 5. Okay, what is the square root of 4? Which is 2. I'm going to multiply it by square root 5, right? Square root 5 does not have a nice whole number. It's not a perfect square, so I'll leave it like that. So my final answer is that going to be plus or minus 5 plus 5. Okay, so that's my answer for question A. Let's go to question B. Question 4, make it a monic equation, quadratic equation. So let's look at it. In front of the x squared, it's a 4. How do I make it monic? I need to divide each term by 4 to get rid of that 4 from that 4x squared. Okay, and then let's do it. Okay, what am I left with here is x squared plus what's 20x divided by 4? 5x. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2, equal me to 0. Now it's monic. Okay, once it's not monic, let's do it. Let's do step number 2, completing the square. Okay, before we complete the square, I need to get rid of that plus 2, and I need to move it to the other side. Okay, just like so. That one's simple enough. Okay. I think that you get the gist for that part. From here on out, complete the square. Okay, so I'm going to go x squared plus 5x plus the it that I'm actually going to half it and square it is this plus 5. Okay, so I'm going to go, the it is 5, divide it by 2 because that's half, and square it. What I do to one side, I must do it to the other. Okay, now we are going to factorize it because 5 divided by 2 can't give me a nice whole number. So therefore, I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. And I'm just going to go straight to the factorization. So this is a positive 5 over 2. That means in my factorization, oh, different color, is going to be plus 5 over 2 whole squared. equal me 2. Just put -2 plus 5/2 whole squared into your calculator, and you should get 17/4. Okay, and then solve. I need to get rid of that squared, so I'm going to square root on both sides. Okay, what I'm left with is x plus 5/2 equal me 2 plus minus root 17/4. Okay, now I need to get rid of 5/2, so I'm going to minus 5 on 2 on both sides. These will cancel out. X will equal me to plus or minus square root 17/4 minus 5/2. Okay, if you can see it here and you notice in this part here, I can actually simplify it. So I'm going to simplify it on the edge here. 17 root 17/4. Okay, that's how I can break root 17/4 as the following to make sure I can simplify. Root 17 doesn't give me a nice whole number, so I'm going to leave it the same. Square root 4 is going to equal me to 2. So my answer, the simplified version, is going to be plus minus root 17/2 minus 5/2. That's what x should equal me to. Okay, so let's go to question C. 2x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals to 0. Same thing, is it monic? No. So I'm going to divide each term by 2 to get rid of that 2 from the 2x squared. Okay, what I'm left with is x squared plus 4x plus, in this case, now it's not a whole number. Now it's a fraction that I'm left with. Okay, that's the only difference between B and C. All right, do the exact same thing. Move that positive half to the other side. Okay, do the opposite of what you need to do. I'm now left with x squared plus 4x equal me to -1/2. Okay, now from here on out, complete the square. X squared plus 4x plus the it that I'm actually halving and squaring is this plus 4. So I'm going 4, halved it, square it. What I do to one side, I have to do it to the other. Just like so. Then I'm going to factorize it. Oh, before I factorize, 4 divided by 2 is a whole number. So what I'm going to do to make my life easier is just going to simplify it. 4/2 is going to be 2 whole squared equal me to, I can put this into my calculator to make it much easier for me. -1/2 plus 4/2 whole squared. That gives me 7/2. Okay, now this is where I factorize x. This is a positive 2. So I'm going to go add a plus 2 here. Whole squared equal me to 7/2. And from now on, what I'm doing is just solving it. Okay, getting rid of the squared. So the opposite of that is square root. Then what I'm left with on the left-hand side is plus x plus 2 equal me to plus or minus root 7/2. To get rid of this plus 2, I need to subtract it. This will cancel out. My answer is going to be plus or minus 7/2 minus 2. That's it. That's it for completing the square. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, just rewatch this video as many times as you want until you understand how to do it. But other than that, see you guys soon. Bye.